Okay, I gotta go. Hey!
Hi, how are you? That was so cute.
Ah, I was getting like a little last minute lunch conversation with my sister.
Love it. Love it. Yeah,
How's your day?
it's good. It's really good. The sun's out. Thank goodness. It's still
What a
cold.
gift. Yesterday I kind of waited until the warmest part of the day and took my son to the park and took the dog on a quick walk. And even the breeze from the wind, it was just cutting.
It was. I know.
And I've said this so many times with my running group and my friends. We were so lucky with COVID spring and summer because we had so
Yeah.
beautiful weather. And COVID winter is bitter. I mean,
Mm.
it's nasty. Sunday, my children didn't even leave the house all day.
I know. I know. I think Sunday we did. Was it Sunday or Saturday? Gosh, I can't even, the days all run together, but we did a quick loop like around, and then one of his little friends asked if my son could come play, and I'm like, no, it's too cold. It's just too cold. I don't want him outside. His hands are so chapped because of all the, and hand sanitizer at school. Oh,
Their little cuticles are just like gross. Yeah.
and
Yeah, I took my son to a skate park with another of his friends on Saturday, and they stayed outside for like 3 hours at a skate park on Saturday. And I had little electric hand warmers
yeah,
like used, but they were really too heavy to skateboard with. But I could not believe that they could stay like outside. Like I sat in the car with the seat warmers on.
yeah, yeah. No, my son, he doesn't even notice it like at all. It's pretty funny.
It is. Yeah. I remember always being very cognizant of the cold as a child. It's always freezing.
I don't remember. I probably wasn't because I played with my brother all the time, right? Like I had an older brother, so I did more boy things than girl things, of course. So I'm sure I was riding bikes and doing all the same things my son is doing.
Right, in the freezing cold, and I'm sure it's all fine.
Yep. Well, how have you been? How's your day?
Nice. Wednesdays are my meeting days. So I have admissions team meeting, lunch forum, then leadership team meeting, and then I actually have a meeting about grades after that. So Wednesdays tend to be sort of like my busiest days. So I'm sort of in front of my computer screens all day. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So my son, he's 6, right? And he loves to draw. He won't admit it, but he loves it. He made a little laptop with a piece of paper yesterday at school. So it folds and it literally is a replica of a Zoom meeting. So when you open it, it's squares of people on the top with all the keyboard on the bottom. And then he said, and look, it's made by that pear company. And when you close the laptop, the top has a pear on it.
That is adorable.
It's hanging up in
For sure. Like that's a keeper.
the pear company. Oh my God,
Your company. That is precious.
just loved it.
Precious.
Funny.
I'm glad he's getting to go.
We've been super lucky. Both he and my middle daughter, who's a sophomore, they've been in school the whole time.
Oh, yay. My younger son is home. My older son is in school.
So our oldest daughter is not. They're remote at Ohio State, but she's there. She's just in her dorm room. So,
Better there than here, though, you know?
we're trying to just give her as much of the college experience as she can get. Yeah.
Right, right. Have you been vaccinated? Are you going to be able to be?
I'm probably low on the list. Now our oldest daughter should. She's autoimmune, so she should be able to get
Oh, you're
vaccinated.
kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Has that been a
But
huge worry throughout?
yes and no. The biggest worry is that she'd have to stop taking her existing medications, which she's got RA and fibromyalgia, so that would not be.
Right.
We don't want to have to do that. So, but so far, Ohio tests every week, every student every week.
Wow.
So it's been really interesting. And she's been negative, knock on wood, I guess. So we'll see how that continues.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have just felt I just feel so terrible for my third grader, and I have to work really hard to put together a lot of social events for him.
Yeah, I bet. It is hard. I think it's interesting what they're all going to think. I mean, just like my 6-year-old, like to him now, all of a sudden, the laptop is a Zoom call.
Mhm.
Like that's all he knows. which I think is really funny.
My brother sent me a meme yesterday, which COVID memes have been the best part of COVID for sure. And it really hit home to me because it said me waving at the beginning and end of a Zoom call, like I'm on a steam, like my loved ones are on a steamer across the Atlantic. And I've got to stop the waving. It's ridiculous.
Well, what else are we going to do?
I can just say good afternoon, everyone. I'll see you all later.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you got to keep it a little fun. That's what I say. We're on them all day long. So, yeah. Ooh, lots of people joining. Yay.
Hello. And Carmen, do you say C Lux Performance Care?
I say Clux. It's kind of a funny story. That's been my tech handle, right, since I started. That's my username. So I've just always been known as Clux. So.
I'm going to make sure we can share screens. And then, Carmen, I'll start introducing in a couple of minutes.
Okay. I've already begged the internet gods and the dog gods to please be kind for the next hour. Like Amazon, don't come. They've already been here 3 times today. Just please don't come. Because if they do, my little Yorkie will go crazy. So.
Oh, it's the way of the home meeting. So
I know. I see Sai, all these familiar faces. I've been studying all of you probably a lot more than you all have been studying me. It's fun.
And I think everybody, except for Eden and Sai, have already gotten their first dose of the vaccine. So that's exciting.
Nice. That is exciting.
Yeah. And Ryan, are you completely finished now?
I am. The Pfizer vaccine suggests about a week until they consider immunity. So this Saturday I will be considered immune, and I will get my first haircut in months next week.
Awesome.
A week after. That's great to hear. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think Moderna, they're saying about 2 weeks, and those are minimum. So it may be longer to actually be considered fully immune. But it takes, you have some level of immunity after the first dose, not nearly enough to actually have any sort of confidence in your ability to transmit or contract. And then after the second dose, it has a bigger spike. Therefore, my body aches and fevers last Saturday. But then a week later is when everything seems to be quote unquote safer.
My husband works, his PhD is in vaccine design, and he was saying 10 days after Pfizer. Yeah, so I trust him.
I'll wait until mid to next week then to get my haircut.
Oh, that's a little cold water.
Mm.
Getting a haircut is exciting. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start introducing Carmen. I am so thrilled that we have Carmen here to speak to us today. As she was just clarifying a minute ago, she is the founder and principal of Clux Performance Care, where she looks at really helping us with the soft skills and the business acumen that we use every day in our day-to-day lives, and especially physicians going in and working with patients. Those soft skills are incredibly important. And she encourages that every company build community and camaraderie by ensuring that each team member has a place, a voice, and a future that they can achieve. And I'm really thrilled that Carmen could join us today. So I'm going to hand it over, and I've got screen sharing set up, so we're ready to go.
Awesome, awesome. All right, give me just a second. I have, let's do that, and then I'm going to go here. And then I have to hit one more button, hopefully. And please let me know whether you can see the main presentation.
Perfect. I can see it.
Okay, great. Well, thanks you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be here. As I mentioned, I have obviously taken a look at all of your profiles. I'm so impressed, right, by the program and by each of you and your resilience to continued education. I have spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I could possibly contribute to help you guys. So hopefully this is an easy, relaxing conversation type discussion that I want to have, but I want to really touch on what I consider to be the softer side of business and what that can look like and how it can help you. So I'll walk through really quickly just a little bit about me, who I am, where I've been, and I'll tell you about my company, Performance Care. I want to talk most of the time about what I call the toughest soft skills, right? So communication, superpower, relationship building, and how that starts with trust, how to hire the infected, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, and then community involvement, which I know each of you are extremely passionate about. And then I want to leave you with some resources at the end that have greatly helped me and I really think can help you now and also hopefully in the future. All right, so I like to say, you know, I was so lucky to start my career off with EDS, Electronic Data Systems. Back in the day, EDS, IBM, GE, General Motors, I mean, these were like the pioneer companies, right, for decades and decades. And I was really lucky. I went in out of college to a software engineering development program with EDS. It was a 2-year program, and it just immersed us in all kinds of skills development before you were even assigned to your first account. So it was training on top of training, what we used to call CBTs, computer-based training, right? And it was just phenomenal. Like, it was unbelievable how much I grew during that time from a business-wise standpoint. And then I was lucky enough to get assigned to the Saturn plant here in Spring Hill as my first account, which was just a phenomenal experience during the late 90s and early 2000s. I met and still work with several just incredible executives that I worked with at Saturn. Did a stint then at ACS, Affiliated Computer Systems, working for the Department of Human Health Services here in Tennessee. And then by 2009, really moved into kind of the second half of my career at MDON and Change Healthcare, which was really where I got to sort of begin practicing and developing kind of my executive style of leadership, which then of course set me up to move into Small Direct Club, which was a very, a pretty big startup, but still a very big startup in the sense of immaturity and org design and things like that. And kind of along the way, what I really started to notice was if a project kind of fell off track or started having problems, I would get moved into that area so that I could fix it, right? So I could figure out what is going on, what are the delivery issues we're having and why, and what's at the root of them, how do we fix those? And then as we moved into Change, we would acquire companies, new team members all the time. And I really got pegged to sort of incorporate them, bring them into our culture and sort of train them up on our goals and objectives and what that really looked like. And it just sort of became a really nice introduction to then when I had to build out org designs at Small Direct Club, because we didn't have any of that infrastructure in place for teams, much less a technology organization. And I sort of became known then as that leader that gave everyone a place, a voice, and a future in the company, really encouraging them to find their place. I started to learn that it was those soft skills, right, that really were my strength. And that was sort of what gave me the basis and the grounds to go out and create my own company called Performance Care. And Performance Care is a style of leadership, but it's also a toolkit for leaders, right, to help them establish and maintain a balance between delivery performance and people care. It's really about delivering your people, right, focusing in on what is stopping them from to get better at what they're doing to really unlock all of the potential. When you do that and you do it across a team, right, you raise the bar for that entire organization, and you really help them focus in on how to achieve delivery results faster, better, higher quality, more profitable for the companies. We do this really by coaching, mentoring on the hard skills, the soft skills, business acumen, domain expertise, and really just that holistic view of all the things it takes to deliver in an organization. So let's talk a little bit about, I want to go through 3 or 4 of what I call the toughest soft skills. Communication, we already talked about a little bit, relationship, hiring, and then community involvement. So when we look at this communication superpower, using visual graphics to communicate is, it's the most effective way to do it. The brain looks at and transmits 90% of information visually. So having kind of that right balance of visual graphics, but also this ability, right, to say things in layman's terms, right, to really be able, hold on one second, did I get that? I'm trying to see if my battery is dying or not. All right, there we go. All right, so being able to kind of do what I call dumb it down, right? That is noticing your audience, recognizing how they need data presented to them, and being able to adapt your articulation to meet those expectations. If you can do that, or if you can surround yourself with team members that can do that in your future, that is a superpower. And it can bridge just about any gap out there. So many times I think I see technologists especially, and I'm sure you see it in your fields, we can't really explain to the common person what we're talking about in a way that really is meaningful to them. And there's a lot of times where I see that just holds technologists back. So I really love to work with them to help them use me, right? Let me be the dumb it down for you. Let me be your layperson and tell it to me in your words, and then I can help you kind of script back a better way to possibly communicate that to a more broader audience. But this is definitely a soft skill that it's not easy. It takes a lot of time to really get natural at. It's a balance, right? The last thing we want to do is insult people. So really trying to kind of just come at it from your best intentions, and always just trying to make sure that people understand and can value the information you're giving them as much as you do. So let's talk a little bit about relationship building, because that's the second sort of really tough soft skill out there. Relationship building is all about trust. So I have a couple of graphics here. Franklin Covey talks a lot about the 4 kinds of trust that are out there, and you'll see these all over the place, whether you're just intrinsically trustful, right? Like you just blind trust anything, whether you're kind of a judger, so you smartly trust, whether you're just not going to trust, or whether you're often on the side of the distrust, right? I have had teams made up of all of these kinds of trust. And it's really hard to kind of meet someone where they're at. We really take a strong look at the propensity of trust. So how likely are people to trust from the onset, but then also what have they witnessed of your behavior, of your reputation, of the knowledge that you have that would give them a reason to trust you. And consistency is a really big deal here. For me, it comes down to just integrity, right? And again, leading always with the best intention. That is sort of first and foremost my value system. And so really figuring out what are your values, what are your core values you care about most, and how can you build relationships off of that by building trust over time. It is unfortunate. This is really difficult. It's not easy. And you can't really rush it, right? It really is a combination of the amount, how likely someone is to trust, and the amount of time that they have had to really assess and gauge whether or not you are trustworthy from their stance. So that's why it's, you know, it's a difficult thing to do, but it is hugely important. Remember that trust is the currency of relationships, and relationships are the currency of business. So it's hugely important in getting, you know, your company and your teams up off the ground. All right, hiring passionate people. So now really looking at what it takes to hire the right people. Guy Kawasaki, who wrote The Art of the Start, it's a great book, it'll be in my resources later, talks about hiring infected people. And those are really people who are more passionate about what you're trying to do than you are, right? So they see your vision, they own your vision, they want to come up with better ideas than you do. These are the people that you want to surround yourself when you're starting a company, when you're really looking to be out in the field and you want to keep growing. So always hire people who make you look smart, right? Hire people better than you. And this is a common thing I see leaders fall into. We latch on to a really good performer on our team or somewhere, and we want to hire someone else like them. And it's just human nature, right? We know they're good, we know they're loyal, we know they're trustworthy. Find me another John or find me another Bob. That's fine, except that you're losing the diversity of finding a complementary skill set to John and Bob. And you're possibly also overshadowing John and Bob, which then in turn is going to, you know, demotivate them and lower their morale. So you really want to look to hire people better than you, better than what you already have. Always keep trying to raise that bar and really be inclusive in who you're looking at. I love his example of the shopping center test, right? Imagine you see a recently interviewed candidate at a distance in the shopping mall. Which do you do? Do you walk directly over to them and tell them how great the company is and encourage them to come on board? Do you figure it's a big place, you know, maybe we'll run into them, maybe we won't, I've got things to do? Or do you deliberately avoid them? And, you know, really, this is just kind of a down home. If you're anything other than the first one, don't hire them, right? You're not hiring them for the right reasons, and they're not going to be the one that helps you move forward. All right. So I've listed out here quite a few of the community involvements that are just here locally in Nashville. And what I really want to talk about here is just the importance of, again, getting out in the community, building relationships through some of these. And each of these all have membership programs. They're really pretty reasonable. But WIT, Women in Technology of Tennessee, is one that I've actually been a member of now since 2004. I started out mentoring with WIT many years ago and still do in their mentoring program. Nashville Technology Council is another one, the NTC. I also am a mentor for them in their elite program. They have it's called Emerging Leaders in IT, or Emerging Leaders in Technology, I believe. But so really just finding ways to get involved. Most of these have incredible resources available to you as well to use. And, you know, the networking, the relationships that you can build within these organizations will be hugely useful to you when you're coming out and trying to look at next steps after school. So I highly recommend each of these. I can say I was, again, going back to EDS, I got chosen to be part of the Mentium program, which is a cross-company mentoring and coaching organization. And to this day, I met my C-level executive. He worked for a different company in 2007, and we still talk. We were meeting monthly probably for at least 10 years. And I recently caught back up with him again and wanted to tell him what I'm doing and get his advice. Like, these are just relationships that you can make and you will keep and you will use again and again, right, in your future. Any questions on those? I know we're going to have plenty of time at the end, or I hope to have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers, but if you have anything on those 4 topics, I'm happy to stop here and talk for a sec. All right. So want to leave you with a couple of resources that I've used, as I mentioned, and hopefully if you need to use them at any time, you certainly can. So book resources, really tried to, I have so many books that I just love and refer to all the time, but these have been a huge resource for me just in the last 6 months or so, while I'm kind of going through so much of my own company definition and things of that nature. So really the 5 dysfunctions of a team, you'll find so much more on trust and trust models in that book, The Art of the Start. The Lean Startup, Eric Ries, I cannot recommend that enough. It's phenomenal. First 90 days. First 90 days seems a little unusual here for this list, but everybody needs to be thinking about what you're going to do in the first 90 days. You're taking on anything new, whether it's a new job or starting a company or whatever it is. You have to have a plan for your first 90 days. Who's got your back? I love this one so much. Keith really drills into the difference between a mentor and a life coach, or like a lifelong supporter, right? And what you really want to build is lifelong supporters, right? It's great to have a mentor, you're going to need them. But if you can find who's got your back always and who will stay with you and support you in the long haul, those people are just precious, precious resources to you. 5th discipline, all on systemic design and how we live in a systemic world, and we need to have a much broader understanding of what that means to us. What you do is who you are. Ben Horowitz, that is phenomenal book on culture and how a leader can create a culture without even meaning to, but you can also lose a culture without even meaning to if you don't hold firm your standards and your beliefs and things. Anytime you allow a behavior that's below standard to occur and you don't do anything about it, you just created a different standard, right? So you introduce that to your organization. So really understanding and always knowing, what you do matters. Actions do speak louder than words. And then Range. Range is just a fascinating, fascinating book if you haven't read it. To me, I have applied that, I think, in all aspects of my life, probably several pieces on my children, which they do not love, but it's just super cool on how people learn and the different ways in which our brains work and the way we grasp and take in information and intelligence. It's really interesting. All right. Kind of wrapping up here now on what I call quotes to start up by. The mind is an incredibly, incredibly powerful tool, as all of you know. But really, self-love and self-compassion right now more than ever, but especially if you are planning to get out on your own and really take what you're doing here to the next level. It is incredibly lonely starting up your own company. And I really wanted to kind of lean in here to say you're going to need to really be patient, be compassionate with yourself, really figure out what it takes to have the mental endurance to go the long haul. So with awareness, we have space for choice, right? I love Chance, always favors the prepared mind. This one, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. However, I do feel like we all acknowledge or feel as if we have failed at some point in our lives. So I also very much partner that with, so figure out how to just fail better. As long as we're falling forward, we're still going in the right direction. Fact check yourself whenever you're starting to feel anything, right? Whether you're overselling yourself or underselling yourself, just fact check yourself and always make sure that it's a legitimate feeling based on facts. I love, it's nourishing and replenishing to take delight in the good that moves through us. Like, give yourself a break, have your own back as much as you can, and really don't be afraid to enjoy when things are going good. Comparison is the thief of joy. I live by that one day in and day out. And then this moment right now is exactly right. A lot of times we just have to focus on just being present in the moment, in the now, and we'll deal with what tomorrow brings tomorrow. But right now, this moment is exactly right. So really enjoy those. Only other advice I think I would give is always surround yourself with, like-minded individuals in a way that will support you, that believe in you, that will definitely feed the goodness that you need them to feed. Careful of the naysayers. You need realistic, constructive feedback surrounding you as well. But you're going to have to distance yourself and avoid naysayers. There's just not going to be time for it, really. You're not going to have the mental energy, and you just have to figure out ways to give them as little of your time as possible. All right. I will leave you with just the tier services that I offer in my company right now that have to do with, so advising executive coaching is kind of the first step that I tend to take with executives and leaders, and helping them figure out where they're going, what they want to do with their company, what they want to do with their team or their organization. I also then usually work into coaching their leaders into building high-performing teams, what that needs to look like, really understanding, again, a lot of things that we were talked about, but how to build cross-functional relationships, how to stop all the drama, right? Figure out how do we remove the blockers that are keeping people from doing what they really need to do. And then organizational alignment is really taking a bigger look at companies that may have just acquired a new company, even startups who are now ready to move to a different organizational design. Maybe they're ready to put some type of more formal structure in place. And so working with them. I think the biggest thing with alignment is always, always making sure that everyone from the top all the way to the bottom knows their why, understands why they got up and came into work today, how their role contributes to the work that they're doing, and how the company makes money, how it drives revenue, and what are they doing to facilitate that, contribute to that, or what are they doing to hurt that, right? Really having kind of those hard conversations so that we always make the best decisions with the data that we have. So that's what I have for you guys. Hopefully it was useful. I know it's a lot, but I figured you guys of all people could handle it. Any questions or any other topics that you're curious about or would like to hear more about?
So I was so interested to see that Range was on your list of books. That it made a huge impression on me. And I felt like what my takeaway from Range was how, I'm so sorry, a vacuum cleaner just started downstairs. I may have to mute. But how detrimental tunnel vision is when we're not getting a diversity of input into our goals. And the British banking crisis was my favorite illustration in that book of how the three sectors of the British banking crisis, all those three sectors were so incredibly educated about their particular third of the problem. And because they weren't educated on the other 2/3, everything crashed.
Yeah.
We have a society that pushes us to specialize. And we work with people that are very, very specialized, but that specialization can often be a huge danger and a pitfall to the success of our business. I thought Range was just amazing.
It is. It's just, like I said, a fascinating read, a fascinating book. But yeah, I call those our blinders, right? Sometimes we don't even know that we have blinders on. It's honestly, though, one of the reasons why I love so much working with younger, newer leaders. They will tackle a problem completely different than I did. I love working with other cultures. International cultures come at triage and problem solving so differently than we do here in the States. And I always just am fascinated to see a group of minds together are always going to solve a problem, better than we will alone. But you're right, tunnel vision, blinders. It's so frustrating when you don't know you have them. But yes, David Epstein, he's brilliant, right? Like, I just really love that book. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with.
Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
I was going to say I'm not familiar with the book, but Betsy, it sounds like when talking about the British banking crisis, you were actually just describing medicine. the way we work in silos. I think the third year students who just finished their project can speak to the different silos within the problem that they were tackling. Just everyone is expert in what they do, and the infrastructure for crosstalk is where a lot of the problems happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk a lot about trying to always put yourself or put a different set of lenses on, right? I had a leader back early in my career, and I used to struggle. I'd ram my head against the wall when I couldn't figure out what a problem was. He said, "You're looking at it through the wrong lenses." And I could never really get, what do you mean? I'm looking at it through the wrong lenses. And then it's really funny when you finally do get what that means, you're like, oh my gosh, right? You're right. I was only looking at it from my perspective. I was not thinking about it from that other organizations or from the business side or from my leader's side. And so really being able to try to spend a few minutes either walking in their shoes or thinking in their thoughts and really try to play out what you might be missing is very valuable time spent.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the 5 dysfunctions are?
The 5 dysfunctions of a team?
Well, the book that you recommended, because I feel like maybe that's another one I should put on my list.
Oh, so that is by Patrick Lencioni. It is, first of all, just a very entertaining read. You'll literally, if you listen, I'm actually an Audible fan. You'll be through it in like less than a day. Like it's just so easy. It essentially walks you through all the different dysfunctions between trust, self-absorbment. There's actually a whole pyramid. It's a great resource book too, because you can take it and you can actually then highlight and take notes in it. But it just talks about all of the ways in which teams basically break down. But the number one, the bottom of it being that trust is the basis of everything that tends to go wrong on a team. That's why I chose, we're always working on how do we build trust, right? And where does trust play in relationships and what should that look like? But yes, that's a great book, very entertaining. I actually did that as a book study with my team at Smile Direct Club with my extended leadership team. And I just would giggle because they kept asking, are they talking about us? Is this book written about our company? And no, of course not. It's just that common across all companies. All of those relationship issues and delivery issues happen. So.
Hey, Carmen, it's Reed Omery. I joined late. Thanks so much. I just, it's wonderful to have you share your profound knowledge with everyone. 5 dysfunctions. When I started at Vanderbilt about 8 years ago, one of the someone who ended up becoming a very close friend also was starting at the same time. And we didn't know each other. We met each other and we started talking about 5 dysfunctions. And he ended up using that. That was like the very first thing he did with his team when he arrived at Vanderbilt. And went over and drew out the pyramid and just said, these are the issues.
Yeah. So actually, I've just pulled it up. But essentially, so bottom line, if you're thinking of a pyramid, right, you've got the absence of trust, fear of conflict. That's a whole nother one that we could spend a lot of time on. Lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results, right? And so the story just sort of works through a real company and how each one of those things eventually triggers different issues, and you see them in delivery, you see them in every aspect of the business. But it's such a great one to always have first and foremost in your mind, and then you'll start to see it, right? You will start to see it in action around you. And I think that's what's so powerful about it. And yes, the book itself, and if you do any research on it at all, there's all kinds of team building workshops you can do around it. It is something that I think a lot of leaders take when they get a new team. Maybe not right off the bat, but as you start to see some of these things coming out in your teams, just making them aware of what could be going on is a big tool that you can give them. So yeah, it's good.
I like Death by Meeting too.
Oh,
Really
yeah.
good one by him.
Yeah, he's an interesting writer. He's very passionate, for sure.
Hey, so on the topic of bringing in passionate people into your team, like with passion can come conflicting ideas, and that can lead to some interesting discussions within a team. So I'm curious what strategies you've seen make those experiences into constructive trust building exercises versus devolving into a path where you can get to a point where it's irreparable to build that trust back.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an area where I just don't think we spend near enough time on in business, in day-to-day business. Teaching team members the appropriate way to debate about a topic is so important. There are so many ways you can have a very constructive conversation and have a disagreement, which we call conflict, without offending, without insulting, without hurting, right? It's all about really, I try to say, try not to use pronouns, stick to nouns. Try to deflect the conversation onto the tangible thing, right? So if it's, what is the problem? Draw it out, get a graphic, get a visual up. So now we're all looking at the problem. We're talking about the problem, not about the leader, not about the person. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but set some ground rules, right? You need to be respectful in how you present your opinion. So many times we just don't spend enough time really in conflict or in debate to get comfortable with it. And so we're always reacting instead of coming at it by responding. I would just say, if you know it's hard to know when you're going to be walking into a potentially conflict situation. But if you know that, set the ground rules ahead of time. Give people time to really start thinking on it. Express that you do want them to come in. You want them to feel free to express their opinions, but it needs to be professional. It needs to be as objective as possible. Really trying to get as much subjectivity out of it. Like I said, using nouns, not pronouns. Really talking about a tangible object more than the person who's doing it or the leader who assigned it. Or if you can try to remove some of that, it really takes the drama, it tampers the drama down a lot, and it really helps have a more constructive conversation around it. But yeah, that's a definite challenge for most companies. I will say, could I see how many of you actually do like a meditation practice? Do any of you meditate? That's another big recommendation I would give you. You all know way better than I that the brain continues to grow, it continues to change, it continues, you can teach it new things all the time. Meditation and just taking a moment to really teach yourself how to accept information, whether wanted or unwanted. That's one of this, I think I said, with awareness, you make space for change, right? Like really just learning how your brain takes in information and what it does to your body. You probably cannot tell as much today because we're virtual, but I'm a crazy, like emotional, expressive person. And so I never play poker because I have a terrible poker face. But really like teaching yourself, how can I accept the information I'm getting and then think it through and respond versus just a really quick reaction to it. Emotional intelligence is a big buzzword that I think you've heard for a while. I really like Lululemon and Under Armour took a different spin on it, and I met with them last year. They talk about emotional resilience, right? Anybody can be emotionally intelligent if you practice, but when you're under pressure constantly and really just honing in, can you be emotionally resilient in really tough situations? I think meditation is a wonderful resource, and there are really inexpensive ways to do it. I happen to use the 10% Happier app, but there's all kinds of apps out there. So just find one that fits you, that you like. I would make it part of your practice, your self-love, your self-compassion. Like, do it for yourself, because it's amazing, the clarity and just the empathy that it can bring to your life. Okay, I think we only have like 5 minutes, right? Okay.
I have a question. I was just really curious, like right now you're seeing like so much divide in the United States, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you've seen in the business world that you think could be applied to politics and government, that you're like, oh, I wish they would just do this and this could help bring people together more, or if you've ever experienced like a really intense divide like we're experiencing in a company that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, I think what I always tell people, when you're having trouble with another department or with another peer, our first instinct is to push it away, right? Ignore it, avoid it. But the problem is we really need to pull it in. We need to, I talk a lot about having clearing meetings. I don't know if you've ever been part of a clearing meeting. If you've got two colleagues that are just at each other's throats, right? They've done all the wrong things that we just talked about. They went personal, they threw insults, they've done all the just awful things. Most of that's ego driven, let's be real, right? So you have what's called a clearing meeting, and it's the most uncomfortable thing you'll ever facilitate if you haven't done one, but you basically get all the liars in the same room, right? And let's talk it through. And even in that meeting, there's ground rules, right? We're going to talk about, look, you're adults now. This is part of being a professional adult. It is part of your job. This is not elementary school or wherever, you used to be able to behave like this. And just sort of calling them on the carpet. Now, with the goal being, how can we get to a balanced medium? How can we walk out of here where everyone has felt heard, has felt understood, maybe not validated, right? That may not happen, and they need to know that may not be a realistic outcome of the clearing meeting, but we are going to learn to work together. You don't have to be roommates. You don't have to be best friends. You do have to be respectful and professional to each other when you're at work, because at the end of the day, it is about driving the company forward, right? It is all about coming together for a common goal of moving the business forward. Those are hard conversations. But yeah, to look at it and try to compare it to politics, so much, has happened that we don't even know about, I'm sure. I say that a lot too. You will often never get the whole truth when you're asked to solve a problem. There's lots of different sides of what may have happened, and you're kind of stuck trying to figure out how to make the best decision with the information that you have. I just try to be very transparent and say, this is what I was told. This is the information I was given. If something's missing, feel free to speak up. Otherwise, if I'm going to make a decision based off of the information I have in front of me that you hear and see, this is what I would do. But yeah, so just transparency, openness, and accountability for your own behavior, right?
Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah.
Also, I didn't introduce myself. Hi, I'm Eden. I'm a second year.
Okay.
Carmen, thank you so much for being with us today. This was incredible. We don't get a lot of tutorial and soft skills and business, which is a lot of what we want to do in this program. So I just really appreciate you being here today. It was excellent.
And Betsy, as I said, I'll send you the PowerPoint presentation you guys can have and refer back to. Hopefully it's helpful, and yep.
Absolutely. And I'll make it available in the student box.
Great. Good luck, you guys. I'm so impressed with what you're doing. It's incredible. Love it. So, thank you.
Thank you. This is great.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.